Hello, fellow YouTubers. This is DVD Collector 1986 here with a new video. I'm going to be doing a review of the new Halloween movie, also known as Halloween 2018. I'm a bit late to the game on this one, but let's get into it. Um, First of all, let me start by saying what I liked about the movie. I really enjoyed the opening sequence, the opening credits with the deflated, rotten pumpkin, basically going in reverse and becoming a ripe, fresh jack o' lantern. I really enjoyed that. The music score was awesome. John Carpenter, at his best, came back and he did the music along with his son, I believe, and I can't remember if there was a third guy involved or not. Forgive me, but I really enjoyed the music, um, and I was never that big a fan of the character of Laurie Strode or even Jamie Lee Curtis, to be honest. But for what they did with her character in this movie, I thought it was pretty neat. Um, she accurately portrayed or realistically portrayed what it's like for someone who has like PTSD from experiencing a very traumatic event at some point in their life. Um, she wasn't just a wino that drank alcohol all the time like she was in H2O. I hate H2O and I hate Resurrection. If you like those movies, hey, it's all good. But for me, those movies were way too tame. But I like that this one was nothing like those two films. It was darker. It was grittier. Um, the fact that Myers is probably, I think, yeah, he's got to be in his 60s. He's like 61. Yeah, he's supposed to be like 61 years old in this movie. Um, he was brutal, but he wasn't like Rob Zombie brutal. He was brutal to a point, but he was also very stealthy and sneaky, like he was in some of the older sequels. It was a good balance between being quiet and stealthy and slasher esque and being brutal. It was a good balance. So I really enjoyed that. Um, I enjoyed the character of Hawkins, um, and just the story. I liked the way the story was structured, very similar to Halloween, the original, and also very similar to Halloween 4. But then again, all the Halloweens, story wise, are structured very similarly because there's a formula to these Halloween films. If you've seen all the Halloween films, you know what I'm talking about. There's kind of a by the numbers way that these movies go down, and I enjoyed the story. Um, the the fact that they used the mask. It's not exactly the same mask from the first, but they whoever sculpted it for the movie, they basically sculpted it to look as close to the original mask as they could, and then they like made it look damaged and everything and dirty because it's supposed to be 40 years old. I loved the mask. Um, the fact that it even had the hole in the neck where he had been stabbed from the first film, and he had that messed up eye from when Laurie Strode stabbed him in the eye with a coat hanger in the first film. All these little things that connected it to the first film. I loved all that stuff, and I loved uh, the Doctor Loomis scene where they played the recording from the court case with Dr. Loomis's voice. Of course, it wasn't Donald Pleasance doing the voice; it was someone else. But whoever it was, he sounded a lot like him, and that scene actually gave me chills. Um, I thought the movie was just the right length. It wasn't too short. It wasn't too long. It was, just the right amount of screen time for that movie. Uh, and I loved the execution of the story. And let's see, like I said, Jamie Lee Curtis did a pretty good job for what they did with the story. She's kind of like a Sarah Connor type character in this movie, which I prefer this version of her more so than the version of her that was in H2O. And let's see what else. I like how they literally trapped Michael at the end of the movie, and got the upper hand. Um, and again, that musical score, God, man, I really enjoyed it. And if they do sequels to this movie, I hope that Bloomhouse stays attached to these projects, because Bloomhouse, they did a very very good job. It wasn't like they. Now we're going to kind of get into the negatives, but this thing isn't that negative, but it didn't have that feel that the Halloween sequels from the 1980s had, like Halloween 2, Halloween 4 and 5, and of course 6 came out in the mid 90s. But those movies had a feel and a vibe to them that this one didn't have. This one had more of a sleek, modern vibe to it, which wasn't bad, but that would be probably, you consider that my first negative. Um, I didn't like how they what they did with the Hawkins character. Um, I liked it up to a certain point, but spoiler, they kill him off. I wish they had kept him alive. So if they did do sequels, that he could be in them, and he could have become the new uh, Loomis esque character. Of course, Loomis is gone, but he could have become the new pursuer of Myers in later sequels. I think that would have been really neat, but that was a missed opportunity to me anyway. Um, I think another thing I would have done different with Hawkins, I would have changed the name of Hawkins. So have the same actor, Will Patton, play that character, but instead of him being Deputy uh, um, you know, Hawkins. Sorry, I'm kind of tired. Instead of him being Deputy Hawkins, they could have changed his name to Deputy Hunt and had him be the actual Deputy Hunt from the original Halloween 2. Go if you don't remember who Deputy Hunt is, go back and watch Halloween 2, the original. He was the deputy that took over for um, the sheriff when he had to go home towards the beginning of Halloween 2. Um, and if they had made the Hawkins character Deputy Hunt instead, I think that would have worked even better. Um, I did not like that they. Well, I found the girl, the granddaughter of Jamie Lee Curtis in the movie, to be. She was a good actress, but I would rather have seen um, another actress play that part. I thought she was a little annoying, um, not in a bad way, but the Jamie Lee Curtis was fine, but the other two female characters were kind of annoying. The granddaughter, not so much, but the mother of the granddaughter, which would be in the movie Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter, they should have had Danielle Harris play that character and not Judy Greer, I think was her name. Judy Greer was annoying as all get out. She was. Um, there's a scene where she's talking to Jamie Lee Curtis, and she tells her, "Well, I'm not going to live this way, and the world is a happy place filled with this and that." I mean, it sounded like some kind of dialogue from a Barney and Friends episode, and I'm like, "What world are you living in?" You know, uh, no, the world's not completely a dark and miserable place, but there is a lot of bad stuff in the world. So I thought that that dialogue from her was kind of ridiculous. Um, let's see. Other than that, I wanted more Dr. Loomis nods, more Dr. Loomis references uh, throughout the movie, and um, let's see. Um, Oh, I'll say this. I don't think that they should do any sequels to this movie. They need to let it lie and just let it be. I don't want to see any more sequels. Of course, they probably will make more. But I enjoyed this movie a lot. But as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't have the feel of those '80s Halloween movies did. Particularly 4, 5, and 6. Um, I miss that feel from those movies, and to be completely honest, I'll say this too: we'll never get Halloween movies that feel quite that way anymore because there is no more Donald Pleasance, there is no more Mustafa Akkad, there is no more Deborah Hill, and John Carpenter is 70 years old now. So all those people that comprised the team that made those older sequels possible are mostly gone. And those people were the cogs that made that. If the older sequels were clocks, those people were the cogs in them that made them work. And we don't have those people anymore. Um, I'm not saying this movie was bad. It was excellent for what they had to work with for what direction they took it in, and the script and the people that did work on it. Amazing movie, amazing job. But I like the feel of those '80s Halloween sequels more because those are the ones I grew up on. Um, this movie felt more modern, which is okay. Um, but I have a bias, like I said, because I grew up on those older sequels. But other than that, I loved the movie, and the special effects were great. And I liked the fact that Michael Myers was older in this. He's supposed to be 61, and he's still brutal. Uh, but like I've said, not brutal, like not Rob Zombie brutal, but a perfect balance of brutal but sneaky and quiet and stealthy. It's a good balance, like I said, and I enjoyed this movie for the most part. There's a few things I would have done different, a few things I would have changed, a few things I didn't like, but if I had to give this movie a score from 1 to 10, one being the worst and 10 being the best, I would definitely give this movie a solid 8. Solid 8. Um, for those of you who uh, are familiar with the old Halloween sequels and that are fans of them, I'm sure you'll understand why I didn't like some of the things about this movie that I didn't like. But if you're a casual Halloween fan, or if you've never seen Halloween, I don't know what rock you've been living under for the last 40 years or so. But if you haven't seen any of the Halloween films, um, this movie would be a good introduction to Halloween for modern day new fans. They'll really enjoy it, and it's also such a good movie that even if you are a fan of the old ones like me, you'll still like this movie for the most part. And I really enjoyed it. I'm glad it exists, and it is you could consider it a direct sequel to the original Halloween. Now, two things I want to mention before I finish the video. Um, I don't know if one of these, I don't know if you would consider it a negative or not, but if I had written the script for this, being that I wanted more Dr. Loomis references in it, I would have had it where at the end, when Myers is trapped and surrounded by fire at the end, I would have had it where he tries to get out and there's no bars that are holding him in. So he's about to walk up out of the cellar. Spoiler alert. But as he starts walking up the stairs to get out, the ghost or supernatural manifestation of Dr. Loomis appears, grabs him by the arm, Michael Myers, and says to him, "It's time, Michael, you're coming with me now." And that is what would stop Michael from escaping. I think that would have been so cool if they had done something like that, but they didn't. But it was still a good ending, though. But I think it would have been even cooler if they had done that. And the only other thing, this is definitely a negative that I'll say, is again, the movie was excellent for what they had to work with and what direction they took it and how they did it. Loved it. But the one overriding thing, as much as I love the movie, the one thing I did not like about it, most of all, because I am a fan of the old sequels, is the fact that this movie ignores Halloween 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, H2O Resurrection. Of course, those two movies, H2O and Resurrection, were pretty bad. It ignores all the Rob Zombie remakes, which the first one was okay. The second one, not so much. But it ignored all the other sequels, is my point. It basically, if you want to accept this movie as official canon, which it basically is, then if you're going to follow this new path of just Halloween 1978 and Halloween 2018 being a sequel to that movie, now there's only two movies in the franchise. The first one and this one, which means all the sequels in between have been written out of continuity. And for this path of films, those movies don't exist in there anymore. The problem I have with that is they're basically trying to say that all the movies that Donald Pleasance worked on now are no longer canon. And that I have a major problem with, because for me, Dr. Loomis is the heart and soul of that series. Having a Halloween film without him in it, of course, he's dead for real, and they can't have him, but even the character of Loomis, not having the character of Loomis in there, is like having a Dracula film without Van Helsing in it. It just doesn't work. And I know there's people out there who say, well, you can still make a Halloween film without Dr. Loomis. Well, you can, but there's something still missing because there's Dr. Loomis. And if you're a fan of the films that I'm a fan of, the ones from the 80s, he was in almost all of those. And he was always chasing after Michael in every single movie. So the fact that this movie ignores all those movies, that kind of ticks me off. But like I said, for what they had to work with and how they did it, I think it was a really good film. But I don't like that, you know, all these movies that Donald Pleasance did are now written out of existence. I mean, they still exist, but you know what I mean. They're not part of the canon story anymore. But um, that I really had a problem with because, to be honest, these movies were never about. For me, they were never about Michael Myers chasing after Laurie Strode. Never. To me, it was always about the dynamic between Michael Myers and Dr. Loomis. That was the at the core of all the movies that I loved in the series was about the dynamic between those two. Had nothing to do with Jamie Lee Curtis. But that's just me. But like I said, other than the negatives I mentioned, overall, I really, really loved the movie, and I stand by it. I still give it a solid 8 out of 10. Definitely purchase worthy. Definitely see the film if you haven't. It's a really good movie. Um, both new and old Halloween fans alike will enjoy this film, but but it'll never be um, anything like the sequels from the 1980s. I love those films. So, but this was a really good movie. Check it out when you get a chance, and I hope you guys enjoyed the review, hearing what I had to say about it. And until next time, I guess I will catch you guys later. Thanks for watching.